My last video on using the higher awareness for personal self-healing was popular enough that I'm going to follow up on it. And I had a question from somebody who asked if I could detail that better. And yeah, that's exactly right. That's important. For self-healing, we need to have this established. My name is Dan Paulson. Welcome to the video. First of all, what I want to say is, do you know Eckhart Tolle? I love his work. I love his material. He would be, as I study Buddha, Lao Tzu, Jesus, the people from antiquity, not worship them, but follow their teaching. I find Eckhart Tolle to be a modern philosopher that's a prophet, whatever. He's on line with them. Here's the thing. There's a lot of people to learn from out there. And the thing is that when you're learning, there's a distinction that seekers make that a lot of people don't make. Everybody likes to learn, but there's a difference between the way we learn and the way other people learn. We look for the material and what it means to us. We don't just listen to people say, here, this is how I interpret it. This is what you must believe. There you go. I've taken care of it for you. I've done all the understanding for you. We're not like that. Okay, we're not going to listen to a religious person tell us something supernatural and say, there you go, believe in it. I don't know why I went off a tangent there. It's because Eckhart is one of the people that teaches the material. You look at the material and you interact with it. If somebody is telling you what to believe in and it's not interactive, that's to hold you in place. That's for the masses. If somebody's showing you how to interact with it, that's different. Okay, that's what we're following. So when I follow teachers, a lot of teachers, they're always the kind of teacher that is telling you, here's the material and here's how you take the path. Never do I listen to the millions out there going, here is what the material says and this is what you must do in the name of something supernatural. Yeah, okay. So Eckhart is talking in, I can't find the video. I'm going to have to paraphrase this. He was talking in an long ago video about his enlightenment when he first was getting on board with what was going on. And I'm going to paraphrase this, but he's talking about just being depressed in life. He was much younger. He was considering suicide. You ponder through things. You wonder what life is like. He's in bed at night, tossing, turning, fitful. I talk about that part of your brain that tries to interrupt. And that's exactly what happens to him as he describes it. He's laying in bed going through this and just this mental turmoil. What do I do? What is life about? How come this? And somewhere he somehow he gets to a point where he's like, who is asking the questions? Who up here is asking those questions? I heard I've had a life experience and somebody up here is asking questions. So he begins to become aware of there's something else there. And that's exactly right. We experience that whenever we get to a point where we've got that part of us that exists outside of our emotions that is telling us, you know what? Is there some way you can fix this and let it go? It's tearing you up. But we get sucked right back into it. That higher awareness is there, and we need to nurture it. We need to develop it. The idea that we need to, actually, that's not right. What we need to do is nurture and develop our relationship with it. It is there all the time. It was there before we were. That's where we have to get to. We are living life through our physical experiences. And what we want to do is get back to where we're living life through this higher awareness. That's what we want to do. Okay, and that sounded kind of mysterious, perhaps. I don't mean existed, like we're some conscious universe or something like that. What I mean is that when we are born, that there is a part of our mind that is there. However, we cannot access it because the brain is not developed. The brain must go through a developmental process where it grows enough to learn, to understand things, then to become products of its experiences in life. And then at some point, if you're the person that wants to go on a path, you separate from that and you begin to understand that now we have mental access to that part of us that is before our life experiences. We can get to there in our imaginations and look at our life detached from the emotional state of it. That is the important part to know if you're looking at it right. It is going to be very matter of fact, and it's not going to feel emotionally caught up in your life experiences. So I think the idea is, and I think I might have got this verbiage from Eckhart's material perhaps, that we are actually living through our memories and life experiences until we wake up and we realize that there's a higher awareness that we now can shift back to living from here. We showed up with it, couldn't access it. We live life, hurt. Now we can access it, but we have to go through the hurt to get there. And not many people are going to do it. It's really that simple, but it's this bundle of memories. It's the bundle of memories. He calls it a pain body. Don Miguel Ruiz in the Four Agreements would call it the agreements. These are the things that Buddha would say that your thoughts, all that we are is the result of what we have thought. Jesus would say when we judge something, the quality of that is going to get measured back to us again. All of these are cause and effect based in the way we're holding our emotional state of the memory. And that's what causes them to continue to occur. That's what we want. That's how we learn and develop and evolve. However, we're now stuck with that mechanism in place, living life and carrying shame with it when we should be using it as a means of survival. It's now being used as a means of turmoil, inner turmoil. That, of course, is unbeknownst to us. We need to heal for a better life to get out of that. Listen to this from Jesus. This should sound very familiar. If you go to the altar to leave your gift, and while you're there, you remember that you have aught against your brother, don't leave your gift. Set it down and then go resolve the aught against your brother. Then come back and give your gift, and your Father who sees in secret will reward you in secret. Okay, as far as a carrier, yeah, you can do that. You can, in their day and time, they are giving offerings to God, to asking for a better life. On the template, what is happening is that you are basically acknowledging that you are looking for a better life. We've got something that is hurt. The ought against our brother are unresolved issues. We're looking for a better life while we are trying to move ahead with unresolved issues. It's not going to work. Instead of trying to have a better life by just trying to invoke something up ahead, you stop looking for a better life. Go resolve the issues and then come back. And then your Father who sees in secret will reward you in secret means you don't even have to keep asking for better life. It's going to happen now automatically because you've resolved things. That they're all going to keep pointing to this. And when we interpret them at a mentally interactive level like that, we're going to find that they are repeating the same healing process. We need to become poor in spirit. What's a spirit? That's what's running in the background. That's our memories and the emotional state of them. That's to heal a spirit is to resolve the issues in it. Always as I'm going through and picking through these things, before I realize it's an internal mental step, I'm still trying to play it outwardly. In the conscious world, I think, well, if I am trying to get a better life, and I don't have problems with my neighbor. I mean, I got coworkers. I've kind of got some issues there, but I try to let that go. We've talked it out. Everything is okay. I don't have any issues. Why isn't life getting better? We haven't taken it to the degree that it's up here where all of that bad, nasty stuff is that you don't want to talk to people about, or that is so unresolved that it causes turmoil. That is where it has to happen in order for it to become truly effective. In the physical world, I don't have aught against my brother. Everything is okay. When it becomes mentally interactive, it'll change your life if you're willing to do it. But this is, again, where the Tao that can be told, that's what I'm doing. I'm telling the Tao. It's not the eternal Tao. The eternal Tao is when you go, oh, okay, I'm going to go deal with these things that I don't want to deal with because they are uniquely mine. Even though I might share them with the world, right now in my head, they're mine and I have to deal with them. If I want to get out from underneath them, then I have to go after them. You just have to turn that mental corner and say the fear is going to be there, but I'm not going to let it keep winning. It won't change my life if I do. And you fundamentally know going into it, even though it doesn't feel like it to begin with, you know up front that as bad as it feels, once you go through it, the feeling diminishes and dissipates, that the fear will not remain there. The fear is there, and the more you look at it and don't deal with it, the bigger the fear gets. The only way to get rid of the fear is to either have it not be there at all or It's there. It's a memory, and it's a perception that's going to continue to act out based on the strength of and the emotional state of what it is and how strong it is. And the only way to make it stop is to stop being afraid of it. And the only way to stop being afraid of it is to look at it until you go, psh, I'm not afraid of it anymore. We have to look at the things that we don't want to look at, and we're going to be using the higher awareness to do that. We have to adjust our barometric set point on what we're accustomed to. I'll keep making references to this with material. This is from the Gospel of Philip. Most things in the world, as long as their inner parts are hidden, stand upright and live. If they are revealed, they die, as is illustrated by the visible man. As long as the intestines of the man are hidden, the man is alive. When his intestines are exposed and come out of him, the man will die. Well, that sounds like a bad thing. So also with the tree, while its root is hidden, it sprouts and grows. If its root is exposed, the tree dries up. So it is with every birth that is in the world, not only with the revealed, but with the hidden. For so long as the root of wickedness is hidden, it is strong, but when it is recognized, it is dissolved. When it is revealed, it perishes. That is why the Word says, and they're talking about something from the Bible, from Matthew, already the axe is laid at the root of the trees. It will not merrily cut. What is cut sprouts again, but the axe penetrates deeply until it brings up the entire root. Okay, now to interpret a verse like this, understand something. It is built on a psychological teaching, period. When you figure out what they're doing, you will understand that it is a psychological teaching that is in here. Every bit of it is about me, or about you, or about whoever is trying to interpret it. The world is my world, my experience with the world. As long as it is hidden inside, it's alive. When it emerges, it dies. Now that sounds like a bad thing in some cases, but what it's really saying is that what we have hidden inside of us is alive. But if we are willing to bring it out of us, it dies. You see what is happening there? So it is with the tree. While its root is hidden, it sprouts and grows. If the root is exposed, the tree dries up. So what we are doing there is, if a tree grows up, in this case, what we have is something cyclically happening that is repeating as long as the root is in place. So the tree is emerging from our garden. What is it? Whatever grows from us, whatever experience that we are having in our mind and putting out into our life experience is based on the seed that is planted when those things happen. The cutting it down and not pulling out the root would be like what? Oh, I'm sorry I did that again. I'm sorry. I don't know why I do that. You can cut that down and try to resolve it every time, but it comes back because the root of it is still in there. But the axe penetrates deeply until it brings up the whole root. Jesus pulled out the root of the whole place, while others did it only partially. What are they pulling out? This is the roots of the things that grow in the gardens of our life experiences. This is our memories. It comes down to it. When you want to make it mentally interactive, this is getting down to the root of your life experience that hurts you. That's it right there. And pulling that out and exposing that is how you heal from it. Jesus pulled out the root of the whole place while others did it only partially. So yeah, you can say, boy, I got a couple of big things that haunt me, but I'm going to let most of that other stuff go. I don't care about. Yeah, do it. But here, I think what happens for purity is that you go after the whole place. It's your choice. As for ourselves, let each one of us dig down after the root of evil which is within one, and let one pluck it out of one's heart from the root. It will be plucked out if we recognize it, but if we are ignorant of it, it takes root in us and produces its fruit in our heart. It masters us. We are its slaves. It takes us captive to make us do what we do not want, and what we do want, we do not do. It is powerful because we have not recognized it. While it exists, it is active. Ignorance is the mother of all evil. Okay, it goes on like that, but you can see is what we're doing right here. And when we play that out psychologically, This is ultimately going after the memories that are not okay and resolving them, because they are causing your life to flow the way that it's flowing. And in order to have a different flow in life, you must resolve the emotional state of the memories that you're carrying with you. Let's look at this across the board for a second, just to hammer home the commonality of it. If we go to the Dhammapada, Buddha's pivotal core teaching right here, verse number 1. Now we are to become a part of this verse. This verse is about me. This becomes the guru when you are looking inward and you're asking the questions, what's life? Why am I this way, Master? Please help. And they say, all that we are is the result of what we have thought. It is founded on our thoughts. It is made up of our thoughts. If a man speaks or acts with an evil thought, pain follows him as the wheel follows the foot of the ox that draws the carriage. I become this verse. I am the ox that's drawing the carriage. The wheel is following me as I pull that through life. And pain is coming around that wheel. It's a cycle of pain that's based on an evil thought. That's analogous. I'm a nice guy. I don't mean to think evil, but I hate this and I hate that, and I'm ashamed of this and I'm ashamed of that. Those are the evil thoughts right there. And they're going to continue to come out. Do you see it emerge? His next verse, number 2. All that we are is the result of what we have thought. It is founded on our thoughts. It is made up of our thoughts. If a man speaks or acts with a pure thought, get rid of it all. Happiness follows like a shadow that never leaves. Lao Tzu, the Tao Te Ching, pivotal teaching. Number 1, right down here. Naming is the origin of all particular things. What that means is that as we are growing up in life and having life experiences and judging them, that is the beginning of them. Judge not, lest ye be judged. Naming is the origin of all particular things. We've just judged a life experience. That's learning. Free from desire, you realize the mystery. Free from hanging on to something, you float free in life. Caught in desire, you see only the manifestations. Caught in hanging on to something, you may not consciously desire it, but at the level of interpretation, you're hanging on to something that you don't let go of, you don't want to let go of. You can call that desire. Caught in that, hung on to that, anchored to it. You see it only repeat. You see only the manifestations. They're all teaching a common thing here that we're looking for. The higher awareness is what we're after here. Let me emphasize something here. We are living in modern day biases. Let's pretend for a second that it's 3,000 years ago and we're a couple of kids. We're a couple of maybe 15, 16-year-old shepherd kids or something. We don't read, we don't write. School, we've heard of something somewhere. Some special people are selected way off in some big city that I've heard story of, but I don't know anything about that. There's some guy in town that can read and write. He's got some scrolls, and sometimes people go to his place and listen to him read. Oh yeah, it's wonderful. But the way life is working then, it's pre-technology. We don't have radio. We don't have anything. We don't know what's going on in the next city until somebody walks to ours and tells us. And then it's old news. We don't know what's happening. It's a different life. We have Genesis memorized, and then we go and live a life remote someplace. What are we doing? Genesis is big in our minds. It's not just the story of creation and something to follow. There's something in there that is much bigger, but we don't access it today. Back then they lived it. Think of that. This is the biggest thing they have when they're there. If they're not watching the animals or talking about life or, the girls they saw at the well that morning. All right. So on a regular basis, their exposure to a lot of things is going to be incredibly minimal. They're going to have the same kind of brain we have, but it's not going to be wired to the degree that ours is. And they're even teaching back then to fast as to the world. That doesn't mean to stop eating That means to stop living through the physical life experience. Let that go. We have to fast as to the world as a lesson to say, stop attaching to all the physical stuff out there and start letting it go and step back from it. That today we are incredibly more wrapped up into it than they were. We have too much going on, and it's very difficult to do this. Now, I find it's important to continue to talk about this to illustrate how difficult it is to see, simply because we don't give it the time, where for them it was absolutely natural. They were so wrapped up in this that we don't even get it. Take the most complex thing you're an expert at and figure that your life is, that's where Genesis fits and nothing else. And it's a story, and it's not something that you believe. It's a puzzle that you work out. There's something that you're understanding in there that is different. Okay, so something that is happening naturally in their life is that they're going to have a lot of time to contemplate, and they're going to have less things probably to mull over, yet they're still going to be emotionally affected by them in the same way. Whatever, that cause and effect doesn't change. I'll say for me, just by accident, I'm an introverted personality, and that seems to be a component part of the people that go on the deepest search, is that they seem to be introverted. It requires this kind of time. You are actually, what I've done throughout my life, I've been up in the mountains doing solo climbing, not high level, high exposure, you can fall to your death kind of stuff. I mean, just going up big mountains that are big slogs to go up. Maybe there's some knife ridges that are a little dicey here and there, but people go across them routinely. So nothing that, is requiring ropes, or if you fall off the cliff, you're going to die. Nothing like that. They're just steep slopes with a lot of talus, So they're time consuming, hours, weekends. But all my life I would do that. I've spent, many hours in tents waiting for the rain up in Washington State to quit, and it never did. And there's a point where I look at the material and look at what's going on, and I realize that without knowing it, I've always had my the higher awareness was very close by, and I use it a lot. I would look at my life, but at the same time, I realized that higher awareness was always there as well. I just didn't know how to use it or what to do with it. So since then, you realize that is what is necessary in order to, you realize that this higher awareness is you before you were aware. It takes several years of life before you even start having your first vague memories here and there, little flits of things. We're just not developed enough. We are now developed enough to get to that place. It was there. When we were there, we couldn't get there mentally. Now we can, because we can envision it and we can experience it. We know it experientially on a personal level, because you get there and go, okay, yes, I feel this place. I see what you're talking about. If you can do it. This is where it becomes experiential. Nobody's telling you what to do. You have to do this on your own if you can get to that place. But the important thing is to be able to get to here, to understand it, to know it, to practice looking at it. You can do it during conscious hours by just standing outside of yourself and looking at yourself far enough as a detached viewer from outside. Put yourself in a position where you are not connected with yourself. You can shift right back into yourself and feel it, and then shift back out to where you don't feel it. So what is happening when you're feeling it? You are the consciousness right here that is experiencing the memory and the nature of the memory. And you don't like that. But as you step out here, there's the higher awareness that goes, okay, I see what happened. This is a part of your life experience. The higher awareness sees a bigger picture. It sees that you're an emergent creature in a sea of creatures. It sees a bigger picture, while you as a victim feel very caught up in the memories. I do, all of us. They knew that. So as a part of the healing process that is nested in the material, I'll just cut to the chase again, is this idea that we continually visit things that we don't want to visit. Let me describe something. Let's just stop for a second and look at this. I said something earlier about a barometer, like an emotional set point that we live at. Think about this for a second. I described a point where I unloaded something that was really weighing me down, and feeling physiologically, like for 2 weeks, my feet didn't even touch the ground. I felt somehow lighter. It was just a bizarre thing. I was like, wow, that was incredible. How did that happen? And what I realize is that when we're little kids, we have that kind of a really high feeling. But as life goes on and we begin to accumulate things, we don't feel good. We don't feel good about those things. What happens? We eventually learn to live with them. It doesn't mean we ever return to our original happy point. What's happening is that when you're getting used to living with it, what is actually happening is you are becoming mentally accustomed to that negative feeling. It is becoming your new norm. You don't know it. It's going to continue to decline. This is the way. This is the flow. This is how we are experiencing life based on what the nature of our judgment of our experiences accumulated becomes. Ultimately, there's a number of things happening right here, but the important part in this case is knowing that we are adjusting emotionally to a feeling, something that actually will even gradually get worse, not in a big step, but in a gradual step. Something that happened as a child that was like, oh, that wasn't a good thing, but it was confusing. I didn't know what to make of it. It wasn't that bad. It never got dealt with. But as life goes on and I have that memory and I keep seeing and hearing other things that are somehow I add all that to it, that the original memory continually gets worse. So it gradually, there's the gradual decay in our overall emotional quality that is so gradual we don't even notice it. We just get heavy. It doesn't feel good. Okay, so when something like that is lifted off of it, that's just the sensation that lets you know you've healed. It's not, you're not lighter. It's not at all. It is a physiological sensation that lets you know you have unburdened yourself from something. This nagging, fearful monster that you are carrying, you have now set it off, and you will feel that difference. However, depending on how big it is, it will become a new set point. It will not stay that way. You're going to become used to that. It will feel incredibly elevated compared to what you're used to. But you will get used to it. And then each time you make a step, it happens that way. So I just wanted to say that. There is an emotional stepping process that happens in this for that reason. But it's a good way to measure success. If you're feeling uplifted after letting something off, you're making it. Yeah, that's the thing to do. You'll know it yourself. Yeah, that's just something you will have to go, okay, yep, this is it. That's what happened to me anyway. Overcoming the barrier the first time was so freaking hard. And then after that, by the time I was done, it was like the stuff was small and I was anxious to find something else again. It turned out to, okay, what else can I find? What other problems do I have? Well, anyway, you don't have to look for them. They show up. I still have them. So life is certainly different today than it was. Okay, so here's the deal. What we're doing then is adjusting. Right now, it's important to understand that is how the fear happens, the way that we're sensing that. Take a look at where that fear comes from. It comes in your perception. And the growing fear comes in the way you continually shore up perceptions against the experience itself. So it continues to get bigger, and we have to know that we're doing that's a normal process. It's okay. Let yourself off the hook. That's how we grow. That's how we learn. And then that's how we know what to extract ourselves from. We've essentially got the mote in our eye. This is our third eye right here. We're living through this bundle of experiences. And when they're negative and derogatory and hurtful, we continue to live with those in the background somehow in life. Even if it's not happening on a day-to-day basis, maybe we've got ourselves all holed up, you're still experiencing it in your mind and fearful to have life because it's a part of what we are. We have to shed this stuff, but the only way to shed it is to change the emotional state of it. And that's hard as we are ourselves. When we are the person that is living through the memories, we don't like the feeling of it. We have to be the person that is, like Eckhart says, who is this that's asking the questions? Why are you this? Why are you that? Who is out here doing that? While I feel this, something else is out here. We have to be this out here. That is the higher awareness. Practicing, but knowing when you're practicing that that's what it is. All the years that I was using mine, and I'm sure you will sit and go, Oh, yeah, I do that. You ever stop and look at yourself from above doing things? There's times I do. When I was up on knife ridges, sometimes I would do that. I would imagine myself up above, watching myself. So I'm not right there. I'm actually operating from the higher awareness. I had no idea that that's what it was, though. I was just doing it as a matter of this is helping me get across this scary ridge. I'm stepping outside of myself. I could see that happening. So that's probably what I'm sure they must have done that same thing, but they did it day by day by day, and they figured it out. That's all they did. That's what they had. Yeah, they knew that that's what to do, to go to that higher awareness. And that, honestly, this is scary to say, but if you interpret the material, this right here is establishing a relationship with God. Take it off the template. Interpret it. And what it means is establishing the capacity to live from your higher awareness. That's it. But it just takes practice. Does that make sense? Look at yourself. Now, you from the higher awareness, from here, do a lot of things. Look at yourself. Look at civilization. Look and see that you are like one in billions of a network of things going on. Start doing things that helps you in your... This is going to change your conscious perception. You're going to start seeing yourself in a different light. You're going to start seeing, oh, I'm not this bundle of memories. I'm this bigger thing out here. And that as long as I keep holding on to the fear of those memories right there, it's preventing me from getting here. It's forcing me to stay right there. As long as I'm hanging on to that stuff, I can't escape it. You got to forgive the odd against your brother, then things flow free. It happens naturally. You've got to get rid of the evil thought and just put pure thought in the wheel, then happiness follows like a shadow that never leaves. Yeah, we have to resolve those things. Really, it's the bundle of memories that we are living through, and we don't like to deal with them. But that if we deal with them, they will resolve and they will change our life. But that it is difficult to deal with them because they have to be faced. They have to be talked out sometimes. Initially, just do this. Go look at the memory you don't want to look at. What happened to you? You don't like looking at it. Find a way to bring it to your memory with the higher awareness. Don't do anything dangerous. I'm just using the material here. So don't take my word as a psychologist or anything like that. I'm not. But what I did was just really face the memories, the things that happened, and begin to try to look at them in different ways and see a bigger picture, and see that instead of me just being the victim, that I see a bigger picture of what's going on. That I see a larger story. I see a big network of things with many people not even making it out of that mass down there. Most never do. Many die right within it. Not only do you get to become aware of that, but you get to escape it. So instead of going, oh, my life sucks, you should be going, oh man, am I lucky? I get to figure this out. You have to change the way you think about things in order to make progress with it. Instead of it being something I hate to do, it needs to be something that I love to do because it changes my life. However, if you make big changes, it can change your relationships and things like that. It can have devastating, or, well, I shouldn't say devastating. It could have significant changing effects on your life experience. Yeah. Let's sum up and put a couple things together. All right. Number one, something happened. The emotion of it is the problem. We continue to grow the emotion by our thoughts. We've continued to do that. We've adjusted our trip point, our emotional trip point. We are now carrying something that is very negative that we don't feel maybe on a day-to-day basis we don't even like to look at it, honestly. We don't feel good at all about it. We don't want to talk about it. And we've got accustomed to living that way. However, if we're at a point where we go, I recognize now that right there is a seed that's causing something that continues to happen, that is creating problems in my life, and that I need to pull it out, that means becoming aware of it and understanding it to the point that it loses its power. Right now it's a seed because I've given it fear power. When it doesn't have fear, it no longer hurts me. I'm no longer afraid of it. It becomes something that is a non-issue. Okay, so what we do then is take the things that we don't want to look at, and within our minds, we practice looking at them. It's going to not feel good. Doesn't matter. Take time, go sit somewhere quiet, peaceful, go by yourself and start looking at the things that you don't want to look at in some way that you can start not feeling the shame, the pain, the hurt. There are some things that are going to be different. I'm not talking about if you got molested, go observe yourself getting molested. That's not what I mean. What I mean is to look at yourself in a way that you're disconnected from the event. You can still see what happened, but you start seeing a bigger picture. It's no longer just about the molestation or the rape or anything like that. It's now a bigger picture. It's seeing it happening all over the place. It's having an opportunity to live. It's realizing you came where you came from, and that nobody had you just to specifically do that. That you get to either live that way or not live that way, and that's just the way it is. That the only choice is when you decide, I've had enough. Otherwise, we're just living life. But that you're using the higher awareness to allow the conscious to have the fearful experience until the conscious becomes accustomed to the experience. You ever watch a video of somebody rock climbing or something like that, and it's so scary, it'll give you, you sit there and go, wow, my palms are even sweating, my heart rate's up and things like that, breathing hard. Yeah, you'll have a response to that just by looking at it. If you keep watching the video over and over and over and over and over, that will stop. You get used to it. We adjust to what we're fearful of by continually going through it. The same thing is going to happen here. Instead of building it, hiding it, making it worse, we stop, turn around, open the doors and say, yeah, I made you. Let's see what you are. Start taking it apart. You disassemble it by surfacing it. Jesus went in and cleaned out the whole place while others did it only partially. But what we're doing is we're trying to remove the seed that the tree continually grows from. We're getting to the cause. And the cause is the event and the emotion. That's it right there. We live through emotions. How does it feel? That's what you got to fix. You feel about it the way you classify it. Therefore, you must reclassify it in order to feel differently about it. There's no other way. But it's that simple, but it's emotionally difficult. So it really comes down to your desire, your courage, your capacity to say logically, yeah, that happened. Oh, well, let's move on. Jesus, judge not, lest ye be judged, for the judgment with which you judge others will be judged likewise unto you. The way we hold this bundle of memories continues to be our life. Jesus is teaching it too. He's a guru. We move on this way. What you're doing is you're looking at these things that are so fearful that you don't want to deal with them until you yourself are ready to talk to somebody about it. There'll be a time where you're comfortable enough to go, boy, I'm going to risk this. And that'll be the real test right there. If you still hold back and don't tell anybody, there's going to be like this barrier still there. Once you talk to somebody about it, somehow there's something magically that happens and that barrier comes down. That's when the real healing comes about. And I don't know if it's between two people or if it's just in your own head that happens. I know that it's that way for me, that I could be bothered by something and I can work through it and work through it and work through it until I'm like, it's no big deal. That happens to everybody. But until you finally talk to somebody about it, it might still bother you. Once you say it, it's like, then it becomes no big deal. I don't know what that is. You'll experience that mechanism. The Romans knew it somewhere, I don't know where, in Timothy or somewhere way back in the Bible. Confess your faults one to another. For the prayers of a righteous man availeth much, or something like that. At any rate, confess your faults one to another. When you can talk about it, that's not a fault anymore. That's when it's resolved. Okay, hope that helps. The higher awareness is there. You'll see it. Just learn to work it. Learn to live from there. Go live from there. Yeah, practice it. That gets you out of living through your experiences. And then once you get good enough at that, you see the alternative and you become more willing to learn how to leave that past behind, how to resolve those emotional issues so that we're no longer caught there. We're in an evolving sea of people that still have things built in the background. No, they don't feel good. No, they're not right. No, they violate the law, all that kind of stuff. Yeah, all that. Here we are anyway. We have to deal with what we have. And we came from different places, and most of us on this path are going to have similar brains. I can tell you that right now. But, all right, I hope that answers the question. Somebody asked if I would describe this more and how it works, the higher awareness. That's how I've come to know it. And I understand and I recognize it from other teachers as well in different ways. So I believe that this is accurate. And it's just really another way of putting something that is already known. I'm extracting this from ancient material by interpreting it. I was going to keep this to myself, but I figure if you've made it to the end of the video, you can hear this. What is that? We're actually sitting here right now trying to develop this relationship with a higher self that we're going to use to heal ourselves. What are they doing on the template? You're developing a relationship with God, and you're going to be asking God to heal you. This is exactly right. We just have to interpret it. If you read it and interpret it looking outward, you're going to get one thing. If you interpret it inward and make it interactive and take everything as an analog and put it in a proper mental hierarchy, suddenly it becomes mentally interactive and a healing step. It takes a lot of work to get there, and the analogs are old, but at some point it becomes something that is evident in the reading of the material. You just become everything. Interpretation, how do you interpret? Interpret every verse exactly the same way. Don't deviate, even if it sounds like you shouldn't. Okay, now Jesus' verses are in a religious genre of analog. However, they interpret exactly the same way. For example, if there was a wineskin that needed to be filled, but it couldn't be filled with old wine or it would burst, I'm the wineskin. The wine that's filled with is life. I cannot put new life into my old self. I must leave my old self behind before I can put a new self into it, a new life into it. It's a healing process. I become the cup, clean the inside. Who made the inside made the outside. The same as if I was reading Lao Tzu, the clay pot. We fashion clay to make a pot. We live life experiences and create what it is. But it's the inside that makes it what is important, but it's inside of us that creates our life experience. All of them are teaching the same thing if we manage them in an interpretation process that remains identical. No variation, even if it sounds like it shouldn't be interpreted. Remember, we're looking for concepts all the time. An anchored ship cannot sail. The dog tied in the yard cannot escape. The tether ball can only just swing around depending on who hits it. All of them are holding the same idea that's easy to see, and that's that something gets cycled around what it's hanging on to. But you could also, in that same process, go at a deeper layer where they don't sound the same anymore. Those represent cycles happening. You could say continual pain in childbirth. You've got cyclical pain happening right there. You could have 10 plagues written into the story. Some of these are pretty deep, but the implication is nevertheless obvious. You could have thistles from the garden, and thistles grow when? Seasonally. So we know that we've got things that are emerging from the garden of our life experience, thistles that are not good fruits from the garden. You've got cyclical pain right there. So the component parts can be very difficult to see at first, but once you realize that they're concepts that are always the same, at once they become recognizable. Stripping naked in public. Now, where is Noah after the flood? He's buzzed on wine, naked, and in his tent. Well, that sounds bad. Let's put that on the template and see what it is. This is after a healing process. A flood has happened. We have now purged. We're on the other side. We grew a vineyard. We're creating a new life. We grew some grapes. We're having new life experiences. And from those new life experiences, we feel good. We got a buzz going on. And not only that, we're naked. We are uncovered. We are not holding or hiding underneath that anymore. This is not literally happening. This is an analogous story teaching us that on the other side of healing, we're going to feel good. This is that elevated feeling. You're going to be naked. You've uncovered from what there is. You're going to be unashamed in your tent. You're feeling good inside of your own self. But what happens eventually? You get used to it. Your son Ham, who's supposed to take you to Canaan, tells the other brothers, they cover you back up, and the story begins. The process is going to happen. But when you interpret these stories, they become very meaningful. Naked is a good thing. We want to be naked. The naked relates to being uncovered. If you compare it back to creation, right in the beginning, before first sin, what happens right at this point? Adam and Eve on day 7 are naked and unashamed in the garden. But after sin, they're covered. So they're no longer naked. Naked was a pure time. Once sin happened, you're now covered. And if we continue to maintain these as human life template and healing template, we were Adam and Eve. We were uncovered. Life experience happened. We got covered. Here, we've just gone through a healing process, as indicated by the flood, a purging. And on the other side, we are naked again. But what happens is we get covered again. So you got to be careful with the analogs. You want to fast as to the world, but you don't want to fast as to knowledge. You want to seek and knock for righteousness. So we got to balance things out. What are you focused on? What is real or what is man-made? All right. Hope this was helpful. See you in the next video. All right, here's some personal stuff thrown on the end. I think that today is such a great time to be alive with understanding and what we're understanding about the quantum field and how it permeates all time and space. Everything appears to emerge from there, as do we, which, okay, well, that makes perfect sense. And that as we're having life experiences, that we remain in that quantum wave. And even though we evolved in the physical world to exist in the physical world, we need to evolve where we need to live. The danger is in the physical world, not in the rest of the energy. The energy is much more vast than what we see in the physical world. The physical is a very small amount compared to all the universal energy. We interact with very little of it, and only stuff that for the moment is tied up as matter, that is within a color and a physical, anyway, stuff that we can interact with. However, we are connected to that field still. And I think that the brain is there and that we feel that is an emotional channel. I believe that we have, that we've really evolved to have an emotional sensation, but it's not that great. It's not as accurate as seeing something very clearly. It's more fleeting. It's more like it's evolved to be hyperly sensitive. If it feels good, check it out. If it feels bad, get out. Even if you're erring on the side of safety in all cases. We're very fearful. We're bringing all of this with us, but at the same time, everything that is happening that looks like that people can have experiences. I've had experiences that I thought, this is magical, mystical stuff. How did I know that before it happened? And at some point I think, well, that's just because our brains are connected in that field and that we have a little bit more capacity sometimes than, we were evolved with. The fact that we hear thoughts now just means that's because our minds can plug it in. Having the knowledge of something, but then our own details come from our own memory. That it can look pretty mystical, magical stuff that's very accurate and very detailed, but I think it's a lot more vague and that we fool ourselves. But that what we're seeing in the spiritual realm is really natural stuff. And that, honestly, it looks to me like the template goes that way too. Does that make sense? They were not teaching supernatural at the template. They're teaching that we emerge from a field and that there is an awareness that happens before we exist and that we go through life and we have experiences until What in Genesis, it would be up until it's time to destroy the earth. And that would be most people's life. That's a life cycle for most people. From creation to the world needs to be destroyed. But it doesn't get destroyed. It stays right there. When Noah picks up, that's the first inner healing template path. That's the first one of those that shows up. But then it's going to continue to repeat throughout Genesis, Exodus, and on. So the thing is that I think that all of the material, when you get to the template level, it's based on something that you look at it and say that's very scientific, that it isn't magical or mystical at all. It completely complies with, when I listen to Sean Carroll talk about, the fields and how energies mix, which creates more mixing, which creates more energy, which creates different frequencies. When you've got two different frequencies and you mix them together, you get both frequencies on the output, plus the sum, plus the difference. And then those mix with frequencies that do the same thing. You get the original ones plus the sum, plus the difference. That this just continually goes on until you have this massive amount of different frequencies. They're going to be all of varying power levels, of course. But that is happening all over, and that is basically what the quantum field is, and that we emerge and exist within that. And that everything that we're doing and seeing right here would fit right perfectly in with the natural process of how the human brain is an electrochemical device, that the emotion is like the frequency. The eye, it sees a certain frequency. From the lowest frequency is red, then it goes through the entire color spectrum up to violet, and then it disappears at ultraviolet. It's just energy. The energy is still there. We just no longer see it. Does it not have a color? The eye just translates it in the brain as a quantum energy. What we hear is the same way, much lower frequency, up to a high frequency until, like me, it doesn't have to get too high before I don't hear it anymore. I'm kind of losing my high frequency. Anyway, it's a different frequency though, but you can see a low frequency and a high frequency, that constantly we have this going on. And by implication, I think we can say that emotions would be the same way, that the way they feel in one way to the way they feel in another way would be on an energy scale somehow that we are tuned with, or a combination, I don't know what, but it would make sense. I don't like the term change frequency. Ultimately, that's what you're doing. But I think it has too much new age baggage with it. What you're doing ultimately, which sounds better, is changing the perceptions of the memory. That's what you're truly doing. And if that changes the frequency, fine. But there's something much more core than changing frequency. You're changing the perception of the memory. That right there is it. Anyway, yeah, I think it's all science. I don't think there's anything mystical about this. And once you interpret it, you see that they felt the same way. That God is the higher awareness. It causes the good and the bad, doesn't it? Yeah, it all comes from the mind. Our entire life comes from the way we choose to experience it. And whatever we get our energy from provides energy. That's it. We're the ones that decide how to use it. All right. Take care.